Now, artist and writer Percy Mabandu, through the Dashiki Arts Gallery, will present his latest solo arts exhibition titled I Am Looking at Sound. We struggled to have him a little bit earlier on. Hopefully we can get him now. It's a series of artworks, of portraits in the likeness of musical icons, the likes of Hugh Masekela, Sibongile, Khumalo, as well as Muyanga, then some of those depicted icons, as you can tell. In some of the images. Let's get straight into the interview then. Percy, thank you so much for the time. Let's talk about the inspiration behind this then. Why did you decide to look at sound, to look at particularly these musical icons and depict them in this manner?
Hey, Arabile, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally connect. Listen, the exhibition, by and large, is about me continuing what I've always done. I've lived my life at this intersection of the visual and the sonic, that space where the visual arts and music come together. A lot of people are aware of my work as an art journalist and a writer who's written extensively about music, especially jazz and classical music. But I've also continuously been producing visual arts work as a painter. And so it's also a way of bringing together these two loves of my lives. I'm interested particularly, Arabile, in these moments, what we may call moments of secular spirituality or moments of, intense encounters between incredibly gifted artists and performers and their audiences. We all have this moment in the middle of a performance where we find flow between ourselves and our favorite artists. And I'm fascinated by these intensities of connection. And so I was looking to zone in on these special moments that we share with our favorite musicians and poets and explore it in a way that allows me to enjoy myself as a painter, but also to memorialize my favorite musicians and my favorite artists with whom I've shared special moments as part of the audience and in my own private encounters with these musicians and with their work.
Percy, one of the things I've always found fascinating when engaging with art is trying to understand the artist's mind frame when he does this. And as you point out exactly your thought process, your two loves as well as you try to marry them in all of this, I think to myself, how do you ensure that that message is fulfilled and then shared and actually transposes itself to everybody that is a part of it, that gets to see it, that gets to unravel their eyes and kind of engage then with your art?
I think, like with every other forms of communication, you put out a message and, Arabile, we often talk about quality writing or quality journalism or quality musicianship, but what we don't talk about enough is quality reading, and quality listening, so that what you rely on is also the ability of your audiences to decode what you're giving them. Like in any other communication, you are saying things to me now, and you are relying on my ability to understand, which you are not in control of. So in the visual arts or in an artistic encounter, I think it functions the same way. I think what we can control as artists and as communicators is to create the best possible work we can that live up to whatever ideals that we're working with, and we put it out. But the audience bring themselves into it, and that meeting place of people's own capacity to read or their own interests and the things that they like. When that comes together with what you put out, that magic is what makes the creative encounter special. I don't think I can control, completely whether or not people are going to understand what I'm trying to say, but at least I know that there will be a conversation, and that conversation is enriched by process. So when people walk into the gallery to come and see the work, I hope that they're able to sit in front of or stand in front of the painting and really enjoy it in the same way that when your loved ones prepare a meal for you, they put it on the table. It's 7 colors on a Sunday, and they hope that you will enjoy the food that they've prepared for you as best as you are able to. But a lot of that is revealed in the magical encounter that I think to to try and control it is to miss the point. I think it's an exploration. It's a journey that we go on together as a creator and as audiences.
Yeah, but Percy, one imagines that just means it's a process of being unselfish, right? And I always just think how that must still be a struggle, though, because you're being unselfish with understanding that your thoughts, your art, your feelings, your emotions that you've put into the art form are not necessarily shared in the same vein, in the same way to somebody else, but are appreciated in a slightly different way, and you have to be okay with that. Is that really one of the hardest things to do then as an artist?
The hardest thing to do as an artist is to try and make work when we have such a rich art history, when so many great musicians, so many great painters, so many great writers have created work. And to dare to rise and say, even I have something to say, even I have something to say. So to dare to paint in a world where there has been a Johannes Pukela, where there has been a Gerard Sokoto, what more can you say that hasn't been done? But you have to trust that you have inherited a tradition and you have the capacity and the skills to say something unique that only you can say. And I think it's by being authentic to that vision, the creative vision, and paying the bills in terms of developing your creative ability as a painter, as a craftsman, that you're able to put together, work that speaks to the culture and speaks to the moment with honesty. And I think in doing that, you are daring the universe, you are daring the culture to receive you with the honesty and with the care that you put in the work, and agree that, okay, you have said something, and then we agree, but you have to put it out. You have to push against your own fears, your own doubts, which are part and parcel of all creative processes. Right, of all creative encounters, of all creative visions, you are going to deal with, is this worth saying? And once you've wrestled with yourself, and the moment, you have to put it out and hope that you are received. I think transcending that moment of wonder, it's the hardest thing.
Percy, let's talk about your assessment, though, of the art industry in South Africa, if you will. Just has it continued to be understood to garner the kind of appreciation that of the amount of effort and time and work that you actually put in yourselves?
Right. I think the contemporary art ecology in South Africa is doing well, not without challenges like any other, should I say, industrial complexes of a developing nation. We are finding ourselves trying to articulate who we are in the world. We're trying to articulate who we are as individuals, but what it means to be a South African in the continent, our interaction with the continent, and as a culture nestled here, formed of the many various influences from indigenous cultural heritages to the East. South Africa has this I think second largest grouping of people of Indian heritage. We have a very strong European settler community, if you will. So all of these cultures come together to give us kind of an interesting palette to work with. We have almost 10 indigenous languages and cultural roots that we're trying to form ourselves into a single nation, a single culture. So as a creative, you always have to deal with all of this heritage and ask yourself, what can you make with it? And then we have to think about that in terms of the economic developments in the world. How do we speak economically? Do we access markets in the Far East? China is a rising consumer of contemporary African art. The old markets in Europe and in the US, and developing our own collectors here at home, developing the taste and the literacy of collectors. So we are dealing with the same things. One could argue that we're dealing with in soccer. We're talking about, in sports, we're talking about development in schools, whether as our young people are able to access opportunities far and wide in the world. In other parts of other industries, there's also these questions about what to do with the mining sector. So I think what we are seeing in the arts industry in South Africa is indicative of the larger complexes of development in other parts of our lives as a country. But I do think that the skills are there, the visions are there, the talent is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we are struggling and we're doing well as best as we can, you know.
Sure. Percy, how do we help them?
You know, this.
How do we play that part? How do we as citizens then ultimately help, not just in buying the art, but really in creating the kind of environment that grows artists like yourselves?
I do think that people, by coming out to shows, when there are exhibitions, come out to exhibitions and collect the artworks of living artists as much as you can. Even if you don't understand, try and get yourself into a place where you understand what the industry is about and how that value can work for you as a collector. I think, making sure that there's quality coverage across media that works both for the artists and the communities so that we develop a kind of literate publics, a literate art consuming public. I think that's important because the art is about the people, and without the people, there should, there wouldn't be any need to create art. So in that sense that, we need to be developing a culture of collecting. I think that's very important. That, if you buy 5 bottles of whiskey in a year, perhaps buy 3 and then, buy an artwork of a living artist.
Well, depends how much the art form is, though, isn't it, Percy? I mean, there's obviously, it differs with regards to how much that art could ultimately cost as well. And I wanted to ask about that as well. Is it, and I don't want to go too personal when it comes to it, but sustainability for yourselves in this art, is that there?
Look, the art market, and this is something this is why I was talking about quality media coverage and making sure that the publics understand. The art market has, for the last 7 years, outperformed the S&P 500 as a dependable asset class, that you trade in. So, if we were to reduce it to an economic conversation, for collectors, for people trying to invest in art, it has consistently outperformed year on year, outperformed the S&P 500 on, over the last 5 years. So that answers your question about sustainability. Sure, it's highly competitive. Just as there are people playing soccer, in the dusty streets of Alex or of Mbamba somewhere, there are also people playing soccer at FNB Stadium. So you're going to get that spectrum also reflected in the art market. But it's because there is more supply than there is demand. So the competing for collectors to buy the work is highly competitive. So in that sense, but we can't speak as if we, the art world or the art market exists in a different economy to other parts of our economic reality. The farmers are always complaining about lack of support from the state in terms of subsidies and whatnot. So there is that, and I do think much of it is a function of quality art journalism. That ensures that our readers get to understand how to enter the market, how to make sure that they get the best value out of it as buyers, but also as artists, we need to ensure that we are aware of what opportunities are there globally in terms of making sure that we access markets far and wide and not just in our corner of the world on the continent.
Fully,
like any other.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, Percy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is where we're going to have to leave it. But really, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I think a very pertinent and important one, but also one that, of course, highlights just your artwork there as well. Artist and writer Percy Mabandu, who is, of course, with the Dashiki Art Gallery, proudly presenting you his solo exhibition then called I Am Looking at Sound.